In the chaos of war, some of the most resourceful survivalists weren't elite soldiers. They were drifters, scavengers and engineers who turned destruction into opportunity. Battlefields and bombed towns left behind mountains of scrap, metal, wood, fabric and broken machinery. Most people saw debris, but these drifters saw potential. They salvaged, adapted and transformed discarded materials into the tools and devices that kept them alive when nothing else could. This wasn't official training. It was pure ingenuity under pressure. Today, we're uncovering how these hidden tools of necessity were created, how they were used, and how the same principles can teach modern survivalists to thrive with nothing but what others discard. Survival often began with observation and imagination. The first step in turning scrap into survival tools was seeing potential where others saw junk. Two drifters became experts at identifying materials that could be repurposed. Rusted cans became cooking vessels, broken rifles were stripped for springs and metal, and shattered crates were reconstructed into shelters. This mindset was critical in war-torn regions where official supply lines had failed or were non-existent. Practical application today starts the same way. When facing survival situations, don't dismiss discarded objects. Every piece of metal, glass or wood can serve a function if you consider its properties. For example, a dented tin can be reshaped into a water container or a small stove. A piece of scrap metal can be sharpened into a cutting tool. The lesson is clear. Survival often begins with curiosity and creative thinking. Improvised tools often combined multiple functions. One of the defining traits of drifters' hidden tools was versatility. A single object often served multiple purposes depending on need. A shovel head could double as a cooking surface, a signaling mirror, or even a weapon. Old bicycle chains became trap mechanisms or parts for improvised pulley systems. Springs from discarded vehicles were adapted into traps or tension mechanisms for portable stoves. Modern survivalists can use the same principle. Multi-purpose tools reduce weight and increase efficiency in the field. When scavenging or improvising, always ask, what else can this object do? A screwdriver, for instance, is not just for turning screws. It can dig, pry, or even sharpen sticks for fire-making. Versatility was key on the scrap heaps of the Second World War, and it remains a cornerstone of effective survival strategy today. Hidden compartments and storage were vital for keeping supplies. Drifters also learned the value of hiding resources. Makeshift containers were crafted from cans, boxes and old tins to protect food, water and tools from theft, animals or the elements. Some were buried, others disguised as ordinary debris. Soldiers and scavengers alike relied on these hidden stores for days or even weeks when supply lines were cut. Applying this lesson in modern survival scenarios is straightforward. Use available materials to create secure storage for essentials. For instance, lining a hollow log with cloth or a tin foil packet can keep water or food safe. Even simple camouflage, covering containers with dirt, leaves or scrap materials, can prevent spoilage and theft. The key takeaway is that protecting your resources is as important as finding them. Fire and warmth could be produced from seemingly worthless materials. One of the most ingenious adaptations of the drifters was creating heat sources from scrap. Broken oil drums were cut and repurposed into small stoves. Wood scraps from destroyed buildings became fuel. Even the discarded chemical residues in tins were sometimes safely converted into fire accelerants. The goal wasn't comfort, it was survival. These improvised stoves kept soldiers warm, allowed them to cook rations, and provided light in otherwise pitch-black conditions. For modern survivalists, this demonstrates the principle of resource efficiency. You don't always need pre-made gear. By understanding how materials burn, retain heat, or reflect warmth, anyone can create functional fire and heating systems from discarded objects. A few nails, some tin, and a bit of creativity can provide reliable warmth in the field. Improvised weapons and defensive tools were crafted from everyday debris. Scrap heaps weren't just for survival, they were also sources of defense. Sharp metal shards, broken tools, and even springs and chains were adapted into traps, alarms, and defensive implements. Drifters knew the landscape, and their improvised tools allowed them to protect themselves and their food caches from both human threats and wildlife. This principle is relevant today for understanding the importance of situational awareness and adaptive problem-solving. In a survival situation, look at the materials around you not just for utility, but also for protection. A sharp piece of metal or a sturdy branch can be converted into a defensive implement, a signaling device, or even a fishing tool. What made these hidden tools remarkable was not their sophistication. It was the mindset behind them. Drifters of World War II survived by constantly assessing what they had, what they needed, and how they could bridge the gap using imagination and skill. Scrap heaps weren't obstacles, they were opportunities. Every broken item, discarded tin, or bent nail was a potential solution waiting to be realized. This is the enduring lesson for modern survival enthusiasts. Success in extreme conditions relies on adaptability, creativity, and observation, more than any pre-packaged gear. By seeing potential in discarded materials and combining them in innovative ways, you can replicate the resilience and ingenuity of the drifters. The hidden tools of World War II drifters remind us that survival isn't about what you carry. It's about what you can create with what's around you. Scrap heaps became lifelines, and resourcefulness became the most reliable weapon against starvation, exposure, and danger. For anyone passionate about history, survival, or ingenuity, these lessons are timeless. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the forgotten resourcefulness of World War II scavengers, make sure to subscribe to Echoes of Valor for more explorations into battlefield ingenuity, forgotten survival strategies, and real-world historical lessons. Share this with fellow history enthusiasts and survivalists, because the tools of the past still have the power to teach and save lives today.